and I'm not competing against others. I'm just trying to get better. That's why I act on stage, act in the movies, and direct and produce, because I like.
Denzel Washington is one of Hollywood's most respected actors. A two-time Oscar winner, a consummate professional, and a man whose reputation for discipline and integrity has carried him through more than 4 decades in the industry. He's admired not only for his talent, but for the dignity he brings to every role and every public appearance. Unlike many stars, you'll rarely hear Denzel gossip about his peers or throw shade in interviews. He usually keeps things respectful. But every once in a while, even Denzel has dropped his guard. On rare occasions, he's been blunt, critical, or openly dismissive of fellow actors and filmmakers. Sometimes it came out in heated confrontations on set, other times in sharp public comments during interviews, and sometimes through philosophical disagreements that made collaboration impossible.
Yes. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father? It starts in the house. It starts in the home.
These moments are fascinating precisely because they're so rare. When Denzel Washington speaks critically about someone, it carries weight. Not just tabloid buzz, but a sense of moral seriousness. Tonight, we're counting down 7 times Denzel Washington publicly criticized, clashed with, or distanced himself from fellow Hollywood names. From co-stars to directors, here are the rare moments when one of Hollywood's most respected men made it clear he wasn't impressed. Number 7. Ellen Pompeo. When it was announced that Denzel Washington would be stepping into the director's chair for a 2016 episode of Grey's Anatomy, fans were excited. Washington had never directed television before, and his presence promised to bring gravitas to one of the most successful medical dramas of all time. But what should have been a smooth collaboration quickly turned into a headline-making clash with the show's longtime star, Ellen Pompeo.
Fashion, lots of drama, and lots of comedy, and lots of romance.
The tension was revealed years later when Pompeo recounted the experience on her podcast, Tell Me with Ellen Pompeo. She described how, during the filming of the episode titled The Sound of Silence, she gave another actor direction on how to deliver a line. In her view, as the lead of the series since 2005, she had earned the authority to shape the tone of scene. But Washington didn't see it that way. He immediately cut in and scolded her, "I'm the director! Don't you tell the actor what to do!" Pompeo admitted she was shocked by Washington's outburst, but true to her own fiery personality, she shot right back.
The police reports and things from what we know of the true story that happened.
According to her, she told Washington that it was her show, and quipped that he had barely learned where the bathrooms were. The confrontation escalated, with Pompeo recalling that Washington went ham on my ass in front of the crew. The clash highlighted a rare moment when Washington's professionalism collided with another star's sense of authority. Washington wasn't about to let anyone undermine his role as director, not even the face of the show. For Pompeo, however, it was a reminder that even in her own house, she wasn't immune to being challenged by someone of Washington's stature. What makes the story compelling is how both stars later framed it. Pompeo seemed amused when retelling the blow-up, admitting that, while it was intense in the moment, she respected Washington's authority. Washington himself downplayed the incident, later saying with a chuckle, "But it's all good." Their professional disagreement didn't turn into a lasting feud, but it did expose Washington's unwillingness to compromise when it comes to respect on set. For fans, the incident offered a glimpse of Denzel Washington's directorial style. Firm, uncompromising, and unwilling to tolerate blurred lines of authority. It wasn't about ego. It was about maintaining discipline and clarity on set. Ellen Pompeo may have felt she was protecting her show, but Washington reminded her, and everyone watching, that when he's the director, his word is final. Number 6. Josh Brolin.
You do a scene just to do it. You get together with people in the weekends and read through plays, and you were in it.
Yeah.
When Josh Brolin joined the cast of American Gangster 2007, he was already a seasoned actor, but he was stepping onto a set led by one of the biggest names in Hollywood, Denzel Washington. Directed by Ridley Scott, the film told the story of Harlem drug kingpin Frank Lucas, with Washington in the lead role. While the movie was a critical and commercial success, Brolin later admitted that working alongside Washington was not without its tense moments. In a 2024 interview, Brolin recalled a particularly heated exchange that caught him completely off guard.
Again, I appreciate it. It was either I was going to get mad. So you say, oh, restraining order. It's like, no, I would just do it myself.
During a rehearsal, Brolin forgot one of his lines. Hoping to keep the scene moving, he lightly touched Washington's shoulder and asked for the cue. What seemed like a minor gesture instantly triggered Washington's ire. Brolin said Washington slapped his hand away and barked, "Don't ever fucking put your hand on me." The moment shocked Brolin, who thought the two might actually come to blows. He admitted he was startled by the intensity of Washington's reaction, but quickly realized what had really happened. Washington was completely immersed in character. Playing Frank Lucas required a level of menace and authority, and Washington refused to let anything break that immersion. Not even a well-meaning co-star.
Same thing. You just said the same thing.
I did.
Does it make you do that, or does it give you license to do that? Alcohol gives you everything. It does.
It gives you.
Brolin later explained that once he understood Washington's mindset, the tension eased. There was no lingering animosity, and the two actors went on to work together smoothly for the remainder of the production. In fact, Brolin now looks back on the moment as a lesson in discipline and focus, recognizing that Washington's demand for boundaries was part of what made his performances so powerful. For Washington, the outburst wasn't personal. It reflected his broader philosophy on acting: respect the process, respect the space, and never break the flow of a scene. Touching another actor without warning, especially during an intense rehearsal, crossed a line. Washington's firm reaction reminded everyone that professionalism on set also meant maintaining boundaries. The exchange highlights a recurring theme in Washington's career: his insistence on respect, both on and off screen. Whether directing or acting, he doesn't tolerate behavior that undermines the seriousness of the work. For Josh Brolin, the lesson was unforgettable. For the audience, it's just another glimpse of how Denzel Washington's intensity behind the scenes is the same force that makes his performances unforgettable. What do you think? Was Washington right to draw such a sharp boundary with Brolin, or did his reaction go too far for a rehearsal moment? Number 5. Julia Roberts.
You treat me like a parent as opposed to something else, right? So I'm relying on that. I don't know. It's not a trick. It's not hard. I think that people receive you the way that you present.
In the early 1990s, Denzel Washington and Julia Roberts were two of Hollywood's most bankable stars. Pairing them together for The Pelican Brief, 1993, an adaptation of John Grisham's best-selling legal thriller, seemed like a guaranteed hit, and it was. The movie performed well at the box office, and the chemistry between the two leads helped anchor the tense, twisty story. But what many fans didn't realize was that Washington had drawn a hard line behind the scenes, one that meant Julia Roberts didn't get everything she wanted from the film. Roberts has since admitted in interviews that she was eager to share a romantic moment with Washington on screen. "I wanted to kiss Denzel," she said in a 2002 Newsweek interview. After all, most thrillers of the era included at least one romantic subplot, and audiences expected sparks when two stars of their caliber worked together. Yet, Washington refused. He insisted that the romantic scenes, including an on-screen kiss,
You know, it's such a little-known show, and I thought that they could use the publicity.
be cut from the film entirely. At first glance, Washington's decision might seem puzzling. Why avoid a romance with one of the most popular actresses of the time? His reasoning revealed not animosity toward Roberts, but a deeper loyalty to his core audience. Washington explained that black women had always been his strongest supporters, and he was keenly aware of how interracial relationships were received on screen in the 1980s and 1990s. He recalled that during a test screening of The Mighty Quinn, 1989, black women in the audience audibly booed when his character kissed a white woman. That moment left a mark. Black women are not often seen as objects of desire on film, Washington explained. They have always been my core audience. In other words, he refused to risk alienating them by centering a romance with a white actress, even one as beloved as Julia Roberts. For Roberts, the decision was surprising, and she admitted she was disappointed that the kiss never happened.
Luca Guadagnino is the person that I admire the most in his absolute devoted interest in human beings. He is so curious about people and why people do things, why they don't do things. He's so knowledgeable and fascinating, and I think that...
But Washington stood his ground, prioritizing representation and respect over Hollywood convention. His choice highlighted the broader challenges black actors faced navigating leading man roles at the time, especially when it came to love interests on screen. In hindsight, the controversy wasn't personal animosity toward Julia Roberts, but it was still a public rejection of something she openly wanted. Washington's refusal made headlines, framing him as uncompromising and unafraid to defy expectations. And for fans, it revealed how Washington's sense of responsibility to his audience often outweighed the demands of co-stars, even when those co-stars were among the most powerful women in Hollywood. Do you agree with Washington's decision to cut the kiss? Was it a smart way to respect his audience, or a missed opportunity for Hollywood representation at the time? Number 4, Ryan Reynolds.
Terrible human being.
How old are your girls now?
I have no idea.
By the time Safe House, 2012, hit theaters, Denzel Washington was already a 2-time Oscar winner with decades of gravitas behind him, while Ryan Reynolds was still transitioning from his reputation as a comedic leading man into more serious roles. The pairing made for an intriguing dynamic, Washington as a rogue CYA operative, Reynolds as the young agent tasked with guarding him. On screen, the chemistry worked. Off-screen, though, Washington didn't let Reynolds escape without a few sharp digs. During an appearance on The Jonathan Ross Show to promote the movie, Reynolds was effusive in his praise for his legendary co-star. He called working with Washington a lifetime dream.
God, first one comes from Brian Reynolds from Vancouver, British Columbia. Ooh,
Fantastic.
I love Latin America.
That's amazing.
Brian asks, Hugh, I heard that on X-Men Wolverine, you had specially designed lifts put in.
And admitted that sometimes he was so caught up watching Denzel perform that he forgot to act himself. It was the sort of reverent admiration many younger actors have expressed toward Washington over the years. But Denzel's response? Pure deadpan. Oh, is that what it was? I just thought he was terrible. The audience erupted in laughter, as did fellow guest Tom Hardy, who nearly spat out his drink. The jab was delivered with Washington's signature coolness, half serious, half joking, but the sting was unmistakable. Coming from an actor known for his discipline and perfectionism, the implication that Reynolds had been terrible during filming was a public roast that spread quickly through entertainment media. The dig carried extra weight because of what had happened on set. During one intense fight scene, Reynolds accidentally gave Washington not one, but 2 black eyes. Washington later joked about it, but it clearly left a mark, literally and figuratively.
Illusory and fleeting sense of well-being. Aviation American Gin slogan take 2. Aviation American Gin. If you're drinking anything else, you're drinking bullshit. Aviation American Gin.
Literally and figuratively. Many fans interpreted the terrible comment as playful revenge, a way of poking fun at his younger co-star for his clumsy enthusiasm. Reynolds himself laughed it off, taking the joke in stride. He has continued to praise Washington in interviews, calling him a mentor and an inspiration. But the exchange highlighted Washington's unique ability to make a critique sound like a punchline. He didn't go on a rant, he didn't lash out. He simply turned the tables in front of a live audience with one perfectly timed remark. For Washington, it was a reminder that respect on set has to be earned, even from younger actors who idolize him. For Reynolds, it was a crash course in what it feels like to be on the receiving end of Denzel Washington's sharp wit. And for the rest of us, it was one of the rare times Washington let loose in public. showing that even Hollywood nice guys aren't safe from his blunt humor. Number 3, Jared Leto.
Especially in these crazy times.
Yeah.
We just put a brand new single called Seasons.
Yes.
We're putting it out now on Monday.
Jared Leto has a reputation in Hollywood for being one of the most extreme method actors of his generation. From sending bizarre gifts to his Suicide Squad co-stars to staying in character even when the cameras aren't rolling, Leto is famous, or infamous, for pushing his performances into the realm of stunts. But when he starred opposite Denzel Washington in The Little Things, 2021, he quickly discovered that Washington had absolutely no patience for those kinds of antics. In interviews promoting the movie, Washington was candid about his working relationship with Leto. Asked whether he had to deal with any of the creepy gifts or outlandish behavior Leto was known for, Washington shut it down immediately. "He didn't do any of that with me. If he had, he'd have been paid a visit. That wouldn't happen." The bluntness of that statement made headlines. Washington wasn't joking, he was warning. Washington went further, describing how he and Leto basically kept their distance on set. "I stayed away from him. He stayed away from me respectfully. We'd nod from across the highway," he explained. He added half seriously that he even followed Leto around outside his apartment sometimes without Leto knowing. A sly acknowledgement of the cat and mouse game their characters played in the film.
What I'm doing now without that early education and encouragement.
But beneath the humor was a clear message. Washington wasn't interested in off-screen theatrics. What Washington demanded was professionalism. He didn't care about how actors chose to prepare privately, but he drew a hard line against disrupting the cast and crew with bizarre behavior. His comments about Leto reinforced his belief that acting should be about focus, discipline, and respect for the work, not elaborate stunts designed to grab headlines. For Leto, who often thrives on pushing boundaries, Washington's stance was unmovable. The two may have delivered strong performances together on screen, but Washington's remarks afterward made it clear he wasn't a fan of Leto's methods. The little things may have brought them together, but in Denzel's eyes, it also highlighted a fundamental difference in philosophy. Acting as craft versus acting as spectacle. In Hollywood, plenty of actors and directors are willing to indulge Leto's eccentricities. But Denzel Washington is not one of them. His open dismissal of Leto's behavior, capped with the warning that it wouldn't happen on his watch, remains one of the most striking examples of Washington publicly drawing a line with a fellow actor. For Denzel, respect and discipline are non-negotiable, and anyone who tests that risks his sharp disapproval. How do you feel about this clash of styles? Do method actors like Leto push the art forward, or do they cross the line when their behavior affects others? Number 2, Kevin Spacey.
There's no reason to be nervous, at all.
I'm cool. I'm
Because, you said you've never done a junket with me before, and it turns out I had to come to you here in Chicago.
Denzel Washington has won 2 Academy Awards and earned the respect of critics and audiences worldwide. But even he has admitted that losing the 2000 Best Actor Oscar to Kevin Spacey left a bitter taste. Washington was nominated for his powerhouse performance in The Hurricane, a film that had critics predicting a win. Instead, the trophy went to Spacey for American Beauty. At the time, Washington kept his reaction quiet, but decades later, he finally revealed what was going through his mind that night. And his words made it clear how little respect he had for Spacey. In a 2024 essay for Esquire, Washington looked back at the loss and didn't mince words. "There was talk in the town about what was going on over there on that side of the street, and that's between him and God," Washington wrote, referring to the rumors surrounding Spacey's personal life and misconduct. "I pray for him. That's between him and his maker." The phrasing was diplomatic, but the subtext was unmistakable. Washington was distancing himself from Spacey, essentially saying that whatever Spacey had done was morally indefensible, and not something he wanted to be associated with. He also confessed how personally stung he was by the outcome. After losing, he admitted, "I went home and drank." For a man as disciplined and composed as Washington, That uncharacteristic moment of vulnerability revealed how much he resented the decision at the time.
The great stories about Jack saying, "I just love acting, Robbie," that classic thing. But we rehearsed on that movie like I haven't before or since.
The fact that Spacey, of all people, had walked away with the Oscar made it even harder to swallow. Over the years, as allegations against Spacey mounted and his career collapsed, Washington's earlier disapproval took on an even sharper resonance. His comment that Spacey's fate was between him and God wasn't just a moral shrug, it was a subtle condemnation. Washington wasn't going to spell out the details, but he made clear he knew the rumors, believed the whispers, and judged Spacey's behavior as something beyond excusable. It's notable that Washington never attacked Spacey's acting ability. He acknowledged the competition fairly. What he couldn't stomach was the moral context. The fact that Hollywood had celebrated a man who, as many insiders already knew, had a deeply troubling reputation. By refusing to gloss over that reality, Washington sent a quiet but powerful message. Talent means nothing without integrity. In the end, Washington may have buried his resentment over the Oscar, but his remarks about Spacey stand as one of his clearest public rejections of a fellow actor. With the dignity he's known for, he didn't rant or smear. He simply handed the judgment over to a higher power. But make no mistake, the disapproval was there, and it was profound. Number 1, Quentin Tarantino.
No, I mean, I don't have one necessarily in mind, but I would kind of agree that this does seem to beg a trilogy of some sort.
Of all the clashes in Denzel Washington's career, none was as explosive, nor as public, as his feud with Quentin Tarantino. It wasn't about awards or personal grudges. It was about language, respect, and Washington's refusal to stay silent in the face of what he believed was unacceptable. The conflict began in 1995 on the set of Crimson Tide, the nuclear submarine thriller starring Washington and Gene Hackman. Tarantino had been hired for an uncredited rewrite of the script. True to his style, he added dialogue that was sharp, provocative, and filled with racial slurs, including repeated use of the N-word. For Washington, who had long carried himself with dignity both on and off screen, this was a line that could not be crossed. When Tarantino visited the set, Washington didn't wait for a private meeting. He confronted him then and there in front of the cast and crew and read him the riot act. According to accounts, Tarantino suggested they step aside and discuss the matter quietly. Washington refused. "No, if we're going to discuss it, let's discuss it now," he told him, demanding accountability on the spot. The outburst was loud, uncompromising, and unforgettable. For years afterward, the two men didn't speak. Washington avoided Tarantino's films and made it clear he had no interest in collaborating with him. While he didn't give long public rants about Tarantino, the Hollywood rumor mill buzzed with the story of how Washington had stood up to him. In interviews, Washington confirmed the confrontation, explaining that he found Tarantino's dialogue offensive and wasn't about to let it slide, no matter how big a name Tarantino was becoming. What made the feud so remarkable was Washington's willingness to risk professional fallout. Tarantino was already a rising star after Pulp Fiction, and many actors would have thought twice before challenging him so directly. But Washington's integrity came first. For him, racial slurs in a mainstream blockbuster weren't edgy or stylish, they were harmful. And as a leading black actor in Hollywood, he wasn't going to lend his silence to dialogue he found degrading. 17 years later, Washington revealed in a GQ interview that he had finally buried the hatchet. He sought Tarantino out, apologized for the hostility, and decided to let it go. "You've just got to let that go," he said, acknowledging that grudges don't serve anyone in the long run. Still, the fact that their feud lasted well over a decade speaks volumes. The Tarantino clash stands as the #1 example of Denzel Washington's public criticism because it revealed the core of who he is, a man willing to speak out, even loudly, when respect and dignity are at stake. It wasn't about ego, it was about principle. Where do you stand? Should Washington have confronted Tarantino publicly, or would it have been better handled behind closed doors? Denzel Washington is one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, admired as much for his personal integrity as for his acting brilliance. That's why the rare moments when he openly criticizes or distances himself from others stand out so sharply. They're not petty outbursts or casual shade. They're rooted in the same discipline and principles that have defined his entire career. For fans, these incidents are reminders that behind the calm, composed exterior lies a man who isn't afraid to stand up, even if it means clashing with some of Hollywood's biggest names. He doesn't throw words around lightly, so when he does speak critically, it resonates. In a business where gossip often overshadows substance, Denzel Washington's rare criticisms tell us more about his values than about the people he rebukes. They show us that in his world, talent means nothing without respect. And that's why, even in conflict, he commands admiration,